So when this present sanctuary was designed and built in 1917, it was modeled after the sanctuary from Marietta Street. The exact same seating arrangements that we had on Marietta Street were put into this sanctuary in the historic. So the one reason that people said that they had all the rows across the front, there was no center aisle, was so that the preacher looking out would see a continuous row of people, wouldn't see a void when he was there. So we don't know that's true, but that's what was told. But there were some challenges with this, with the lack of the center aisle. For instance, when our elder daughter got married, there was no center aisle, and so the bride had to proceed, when they came into the sanctuary, had to proceed down the left side and then exit on the right side. And of course, some mothers didn't like this because there was no prominence of the bride and the groom, the bride coming in, the bride and groom leaving together. Another problem was that there was very little space between the chancel and the first row of pews, and so there was no room for an orchestra at the same degree that we have now. And some of the orchestra people actually had to sit in the chancel. So next slide. So when we had a sanctuary redesigned in the early 1990s, one of the things we did was to take out the first two row of pews altogether, and then we cut, that's the old sanctuary, and then we cut the third and fourth row, we cut a center aisle through there so that you could have the brides proceed out, and also the space for the orchestra, which you can see now. There's a wedding photo in there. One of the things that's happened, this is just one of the things that's happened over the years as our church has expanded, by eliminating the pews and changing the floor plan of the church. And these things are healthy, really, for us because we have a chance to do things differently and to grow. And I think the orchestra and the mothers of brides really like this.
Thanks, Tommy. Thank you. All right. So this is going to feel a lot different than last week if you were here or if you watched it on video. Last week we only tackled two values. The whole campus master plan is driven by values that were developed through the long-range strategic plan, through the campus master planning process, which took 2 years, and then through congregational feedback that took place in the spring throughout the summertime. That was a three-legged stool that built this plan. And the plan, again, is driven by the values that we have released to the congregation, that we've been talking about for over a year now, and have been really anchored in the life of this work. We focused on hospitality last week and tangible compassion. And those two values really sort of set the stage for everything else, opening up Peachtree, making it more intuitive for wayfinding, having a presence on Peachtree Street, and then more hospitable areas within the life of the campus itself where community can be built and these connections can be made. We also talked about tangible compassion. The big piece of that is the proposal of a 13-story tower, housing tower, on our surface lot across the street. That would be some sort of combination of workforce housing, of affordable housing, of supportive housing. We imagine that we can exponentially increase our outreach in the Women's Transformation Center and at the same time provide dignity with individual units, micro units, where those women can come and go and be much more independent than they are right now. We also double the size of community ministries, taking the second floor and adding to it the third floor of the Smith building, opening that up, bringing more natural light in to support the mental health and the welcome of all those who are participating in community ministries, all those who we are serving. So that's what we worked on last week. Let me review. You've seen this slide. There's some slides that are repetitive. This slide is one of them. Just want to be clear about what a campus master plan is and what it is not. A campus master plan is a roadmap document that guides the decision-making process for the physical development of the campus. It is not schematic plans. It's not construction documents. It's not, this is what's going to happen in 5 years, exactly what you're seeing. It's a roadmap. It's a guide. believing that the campus has the potential to manifest the mission and values of the church. The plan covers physical spaces, open spaces, circulation and gathering, transportation and parking, and sustainability. So the whole thing, our whole community life as it is contained and defined by our physical presence, by this campus. Again, there are things that we know and there's things that we're unknown. I got complaints about my red clicker, and I'm not sure if this green clicker is any better. Can everybody in the back see that? Praise the Lord. Do you know that was the number one complaint I got for the whole campus master plan? Like, it was about the clicker. Yeah. All right, so we are here in the project planning phase. And if you look at the ice cream cone, there's so much that is unknown. What we're presenting now is what we have a hunch of or what we have a sense of or the direction we're moving, but there's a lot that's unknown, okay? So I think we just hold all of that with an open heart and an open mind and open hands as we move through the rest of this presentation. This is a new picture that we got. We're developing some watercolors. This is, I think, one of the most dramatic pictures that we've come to see now in terms of the modeling. This is Arts Center Way. This is 16th Street. This is Peachtree Street. And you can see, as we talked about some of the points of hospitality and welcome, these dramatic entrances that really define entry space, that really define for us where we're coming and going. You see this brand new, from the backside, this 300-person atrium and commons that becomes the hub of our community life. And then over here, what you can't see fronting Peachtree is that brand new 400-seat performance worship center that will be not just for our use as a church, but also, we hope, for the arts community and for those beyond, so that we can be a choice destination for community life and activity. Again, just to highlight for those who haven't seen these pictures yet, this is not our current parking deck. This is a second level. It's a hat on top that adds 35 spaces to our back lot on Arts Center Way, something that was very much coveted by many in feedback process. This is the original building. We've added here. I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute. This is Smith, and these are the buildings from the 1960s. 1920s as well. 1960s all here, 1920 is here. Everybody have that orientation? Yeah. All right, so I'm moving through the values. This is going to be a little quicker than I did last week because some of this is going to be repetitive from what you've seen, so I can just highlight the narrative itself. So value number 3 is collaboration. The master plan increases opportunities for staff collaboration by centralizing administrative functions, providing a combination of open and walled-off spaces to balance interactivity and privacy, integrating technology into spaces that enable simple remote participation, video conferencing, and providing space for community collaboration, third space, epiphany, cafe-like workspace. So you see in collaboration, we talked about this dramatic plaza entry off of Arts Center. This door would be the main door to see the administrative staff, the pastors and staff, coming off of Arts Center, coming into this dramatic entrance. There would be a hub, a welcome hub on the second level, which this is the second level. Sorry, I clicked too soon. This is the second level. Remember, there's a level underneath here because the surface lot and now this new parking hat on top. So this is the second level. There'd be an administrator there welcoming, or a volunteer there welcoming. You come in and say, hey, I'm coming to visit Tony. They buzz up. There's an internal staircase and an elevator from that second level that takes you to level 3. This is level 3 of the campus. For orientation, this is the Smith Building. This is the sanctuary. This is Peachtree Street. Okay? Our offices would be configured close together. We'd also have sort of open WeWork kind of workspace as well, to have a combination of both. So Tommy Hills, who just spoke, he's the outgoing chair of the Board of Trustees. He may want to do some work up here in a more quiet space before the meeting starts, although that would be like at 7 a.m. He would come up and he could access this. He could do some work while he's waiting for a staff member, we see this as really shared space and open space for members and staff, but also perhaps our Epiphany grant winners or people we're mentoring. This can be a wonderful space. So we have the internal staircase here, right there, and we have the elevator that gets you up. So collaboration was a big part. We have 45 offices, to make the case, 45 offices across this whole campus. And there's only a handful that are really in proximity to one another. And the value that we put forward here was to be in closer proximity. Again, this collaboration with this is the Smith Building, adding a full cafe and bookstore, integrating the mustard seed into a cafe, that this becomes third space. You've ever heard that term? First space is your home, second place is your work, third space is where you voluntarily collaborate and come together. Here you see, just for those who haven't seen it, the second and third floor of the new community ministries operation. Samaritan Center goes up. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Women's Transformation Center goes across the street. Okay? All right, relevance. The master plan magnifies the relevance of FPC within Midtown by marrying traditional stone structure with new spaces that honor FPC's important history and reveal today's vibrant spirit, complementing the architecture of North Midtown as an arts, culture, and center. By the way, get used to this terminology. North Midtown is a thing. It's no longer just Midtown. There's a thing now called North Midtown. The kids love it. Connecting to Midtown through improved streetscapes facing Peachtree, 16th and Arts Center Way, expanding the capacity for shared programming with Midtown neighbors. I'll go in reverse. The shared programming with Midtown neighbors, we believe that this space, this atrium and this 400-seat worship performance space will be attractive to our neighbors and will be a desired destination for various types of events, including the ones that we host and that we put together. You see the streetscapes open up. You see accessibility happen. All of these spaces now become accessible through ramping structures. This door, for those who missed it, is the Peachtree door. We'll have a concierge right here. And this door will be open during the week. Right now, we don't have an open door on Peachtree during the week. This will be the hub of the campus. But the relevance you see this intentionally with the coloring. We imagine, and we were motivated, I introduced at the 11 o'clock service my colleague Tim Hart-Anderson. One of the things that they did in Minneapolis at Westminster was similar to this. They took the stone of their original structure and they smoothed it out, made it modern looking, took the flashing and the metal and different components of their 1890s sanctuary and integrated it into their new space. We imagine doing the same exact thing. And I'll talk about that again when we get to the point of tradition. You see the relevance? We've now created another front door off of Arts Center. You see the big hole in the ground on West Peachtree Street, a 34-story building that's going there. I think that's the new Invesco headquarters. And then you've got 4 towers proposed right here by a public-private venture with the city, with MARTA, with Integral, and with Cousins Properties. That's going to happen. That's happening. So this is a new front door. Again, no longer are we going to have people come up the fire escape in an undignified and unchristian way for our community ministries. They're going to come in this plaza entrance and meet another concierge right here. Relevant to what's happening around. We told you that Hank was the American architect who worked with the Italian architect at the High Museum of the Woodruff Center. You see those sensibilities coming to play with these sort of the centralized hub, the plaza hub in the center, and these multiple doorways into the center of campus that mirrors what Midtown desires and also mirrors the High Museum of Art and the Woodruff Arts Center. Does that make sense? Again, relevance facing off of 16th Street, dramatic entrance that brings us into bear, again, here in a different vantage point. And again, a different vantage point for this, for the frontage. Community. The master plan promotes community and encourages members, friends, and Midtown to come together by integrating common areas and circulation to promote lingering and unplanned social interactions, making places for unstructured activities more visible, such as recreation, third space, displays, providing common areas that improve flow during weddings, funerals, and other community events, providing space for community partners like Samaritan, Epiphany, Child Spring International. This is the community hub. We lack this desperately right now in the life of the church. A centralized space where organically people come together, that they don't have to traverse hallways to get to, but naturally flow into this centralized commons sort of area, opened up to the grand architecture, which you cannot see inside the building, to the grand architecture that is our historic core. Again, community, we see this third space happening for people to come together. Right here is a floor plan of level 1. So this is the surface lot level, okay? So this right here is below ground, below that top hat. And here, please note, this is where my office is. This is the Smith Building. Here's the sanctuary, Peachtree Street. Please note that these number 12s here, are classrooms. We heard feedback, we're going to talk about that in just a second, feedback from adult members of the church that they don't want to traverse the whole building to get to their Sunday school class and would like them all together and contiguous. Not only do we achieve that, we also create common spaces where people to gather before they go into their classes or into their multipurpose space. This is so very important because what we have right now are these long hallways that interaction and community doesn't happen. Now we have these built-in intentional spaces on level 1 here, in the atrium here as well. And then number 8, we mentioned here, the children are going to love this, the younger children. This is a rec room, right off of Parents Morning Out. This is the nursery. Parents Morning Out and this wonderful rec room. Adults can use it too, but it'll be a wonderful rec room looking out on the garden. We imagine it being glass here so you can see through the garden. That's the memory garden right now. You can see through the garden and you can see the kids playing while you're enjoying a cup of coffee right here in these spaces. And then again, community. We're talking about our partners, Samaritan Counseling Center and Child Spring International, refurbished and renovated 4th floor space that expands both of their operations. And down the road, if one of them ever is not with us anymore, we can utilize that space, design it flexibly so that we can invite a different group to come in. So we're still using that intuition. We still have that intuition, rather, of using our space for ministries that we're connected with but aren't carried out by us in the day-to-day. Spiritual formation and the arts. The master plan grows FPC's offerings for spiritual formation in the arts by increasing the number, variety, and quality of sacred spaces on campus, improving the visibility and access to the School of Fine Arts and orienting to the high, providing gathering space outside of classrooms so classroom conversations continue informally. I mentioned that already. Providing technology in classrooms to enable remote participation and expand reach. Again, this is level 1. Here, again, is the classrooms that we imagine. All the adult Sunday morning classrooms and the multi-purpose rooms throughout the week would all be on level 1. They all be contiguous to one another and this area. By the way, from an arts perspective, we imagine that these hard walls can also become an art gallery. That we can utilize this space and this common area to display art. Remember a couple years ago we had this partnership internally with the arts ministry and our Cuban global mission, and we had the art of Vasquez come in and we preached on it. We imagined like that would be a prominent display area for Vasquez's art or for rolling exhibitions. All right? So you see that. You also see the classrooms for PMO, for Parents Morning Out. These are the toddlers. These are the nursery rooms connected to this rec room. This brand new 400-seat space, seat number 26, something that we heard feedback from. It's a prayer room for 1, 2 people, 3 people to come in to pray. So we're moving now, right? Just walk with me here. From the tiniest of worship sacred spaces, 26, that's the prayer room, to the chapel, number 22, that seats 70, to anywhere from, you can do 100 to 400 in here, to 750, okay? And right here on the second level, but remember, this is the plaza entrance, so it feels like it's the first level. Right here, a brand new chapel that will seat 200 people. That will be an additional sacred worship space. It can be used in multi-purpose ways as well, but we want to design it with a sacred intention in mind. That could be a smaller, in the summertime, instead of worshiping in the big space, we may want to worship here at the 9 o'clock hour. More intimate feel. We imagine that this chapel will be a lot different than the chapel we currently have to create a more modern, more light-enriched space. Okay? You see the School of Fine. The School of Fine Arts is right here. This is small but important. These are individual practice rooms. We have, by the way, folks who are part of the symphony next door. There's a symphony next door. They come and they practice here because they can't. There's not a lot of practice room over in the Woodruff, and we get them to be on faculty for our School of Fine Arts in a trade for practice space. So we have some of the top musicians and teachers in the whole city teaching at our school. And we want to make our school physically more attractive and more useful in what we're trying to do. Instead of taking rooms that serve multi-purposes and doing piano lessons, for example, in a big room, instead of a soundproof kind of room that's designed for it. The preschool envelope, this is important. Just to note, the preschool, this building ends right here right now. Okay? So this is brand new construction that goes over, it's a porte-cochere that goes over this driveway that becomes 2 lanes. The preschool envelope is secure here. That's only going to be an emergency exit here. It's got an internal staircase as well, the preschool does. So it doesn't have to leave the envelope unless it's going to Moto or the Art Center for a field trip. So it can stay in the envelope, and there are doors that exit out to this brand new 8,000 square foot playground. This allows for us as a church to move our preschool, if we want, to a full day option. It creates the space. And if you ask any parent who's got their kids in preschool and they're both working full-time jobs, they're desperate for that kind of care. We see that can also be a revenue boost also for the church moving to that kind of school day. Let me go up to the 3rd floor again where I showed you the offices. This is brand new youth space with showers. You know how many times we get asked by people who are doing service projects in the city to spend the night here, and we say, you're welcome to spend the night, but we don't have showers. This would have showers, gender-neutral showers, and brand new youth space designed, we hope, by the youth to be a part of that process. You see the Smith building. These are some of the offices here. Just pay attention again to the preschool envelope. That's 2nd floor. So this is 3rd floor, rather. This doesn't exist right now. This 3rd floor doesn't exist. This would be new construction on top. It was designed originally to have another floor. So we have the capacity, we know, to do that. All right? Again, preschool parents, this wonderful turnaround drop-off, it gets, Hank, how many cars we get off the street now? 12? Something like that? And we will get 35 cars off the street. Atlanta's going to love us. Midtown Alliance is going to love us because of this brand new and the extra deck. And they have this grand entrance that there'll be a concierge here to let them into the preschool. Okay? 7, broadcast. I don't have much to show you on this because this is more technological. Upgrading equipment throughout the campus to improve quality of broadcast content, improve technology in classrooms to enable content capture and sharing, improving broadcast backdrops to better reflect FPC, and creating FPC applications that broadcast content and connectivity. And all I have to show you here is a brand new broadcast center, which is right above or in parallel with the 2nd level of the new 400-seat performance and worship space. Okay? So otherwise, I don't have pictures to show you of like the IT plans, okay? But just imagine that we will enter the 21st century with IT excellence and capabilities, okay? Tradition, this is a big, big point that we heard a lot of feedback from as well. Preserving the historic portions of the campus, we call that, again, the historic core, okay? That historic core includes the sanctuary, the chapel, bride's room, and founder's hall. And we preserve that in accordance with best practices for historic structures. We renovate and expand non-historic portions of the campus in accordance with best practices for historic property expansions, compatible but differentiated, authentic reflection of time built. Okay, this is going to be part of the design work, but it's one of the values that we have. Creating new prominently placed communal archives and heritage room, and exploring evolution of church facility design from fortress, providing sanctuary, to one that also opens up to its community, sharing God's word and work. Precursor to the sermon for those who haven't heard it at 11 yet. Historic core, right here. Chapel, bride's room, founder's hall, sanctuary. Not the current Worth Room. That's the third building to be on that particular plot of land. Our first building ever was there, but it wasn't the Worth Room. So our historic core includes this. That's what we preserve. We also preserve the tradition here with brand new, right off of the Dupree Garden, and a brand new Archives and History Center. Right there. And then, of course, integrating the traditional architecture, actually opening it up more so that we can see it in a more regular way, and the city can see it in a more regular way, and letting the tradition dictate the materials that we use to build these structures, these brand new structures. Finally, environment. The master plan minimizes the development and long-term operational impact on the environment. By reusing the majority of existing church structures, we're only demolishing single-story portions. Utilizing sustainable development, best practices, efficient lighting and mechanical systems, recycling stations in water bottle fillers, and supplying natural light and visual connections to gardens and exterior spaces, rooftop gardens, and solar panels. Just to note, this is a color diagram that gives you perspective on what's actually happening. Here's the historic preservation, the historic core, the new construction, the tower across the street, and then the commons and this brand new worship performance space. New construction with this third level added, right? But all renovation of the 1929 and 1961 buildings, and integrating them to look like they were all built together. You notice, hopefully you notice the green roofs. This is a solar panel structure. We imagine this is a rooftop deck. This is where we'll watch the Peachtree Road Race together. The green roofs, we imagine, have the possibility to be water capturing. We've seen this done in other churches. Just depends on what kind of investments we want to make. Water capturing, where we could use that water and recycle it to use it internally for bathrooms, etc. So an eye for green. Somebody asked me last week, are we going for LEED certification? Right now, we know, LEED is like putting an organic label on your food, right? There's a process and you pay for it. We think we can hit all of the LEED standards even if we don't become LEED certified, if that makes sense. So we have to decide, is that juice worth the squeeze in terms of paying if we have, with integrity, felt good about honoring this ninth value of environment. Okay? Now, the cost. I just went right to it because this is what everybody wants to know from the very beginning. How much does this cost? And so I want to be clear about this slide. Number one, there's nothing to hide here. We've been totally transparent throughout this process at every level. And so we want to continue that. And we want to have an honest sort of conversation about the cost and where we are in terms of timeline. This is in 2021 dollars, and it builds in for the whole project a 10% contingency. Okay? So 2021 dollars, mid-year 2021. So we're not even 12 months out from that dollar amount. And it builds in a 10% contingency. And we've divided it up between West Campus and East Campus, and I'll tell you why in just a second. But from the atrium and commons and the 400-seat worship performance space, that's leveling this through the Worth Room, brand new construction, that's $25 million. The renovations of the 1960s building, which impact all spheres of life, from community to spiritual formation to the offices, the 1960 renovation is a massive renovation, and that's $22 million. The preschool and children's ministry and the third floor addition is about $10 million. To expand the preschool to get it to be full day, and then to add that additional third floor vertical. The community ministries expansion in the Smith building is $7 million. That renovates both floors, the second and third, to meet the needs of community ministries. The Art Center Way Plaza deck is $5 million, and the courtyard, playground, and streetscapes, which involves the whole campus, is $3 million. Across the street, that tower, that 13-story, 110-unit tower, we've estimated as about $28 million. And by the way, this is not just us throwing darts. We had a professional estimator work with Hank and his team to give us these solid figures. So this is the cost of both the west side of the campus and the east side of the campus. Everybody sear that in your brain. It'll be online. I'm moving, all right? I'm going to move, all right? There it is. All right, here's the timeline. I'm going to spare you all the details here because we went through this in the first week, okay? Just to give you, this has been a 4-year process, okay? 4 years. For those of you who are new to the church, we've been at this from behind the scenes in a 4-year way. We went public basically in the spring as we engaged even before that, we released the 9 values. We talked about the campus master plan, but it started to engage the congregation in the spring through the summer. And so that took us, this most recent timeline took us right here to January. Campus master plan is presented to the congregation. We had a leadership retreat that we rolled it out to staff, session, and ministry leaders. We rolled it out over the course of 3 Sundays, 12th, 19th, and 26th during the Sunday school hour. That's all online. You can also access that beyond this. And what we've launched is a pre-campaign phase to begin to assess the financial feasibility of the project. I want to say more about that in just a second. In June, this could move, but we're June-ish. It could go through August. It may go into early fall. We want to make a go, no-go decision on the first phase of this project, would be the west side, the 1328 side. The 1337 east side of the campus, we feel is going to be, from a project perspective, a separate thing. We think it's going to be separate dollars. We think it's going to be a separate campaign. What we're hoping for right now is that the congregation really focuses on this side of the campus. And that doesn't mean that we're waiting per se, but we have some due diligence that we have to do still for across the street, and there's a lot more to connect on around that. We're moving forward on it, but we see these as 2 distinct campaigns and 2 distinct projects. We actually see a third distinct campaign that would be just preschool, that we would leverage the alumni network. I mean, I'm making that up, but our alumni network. Some of you went to the preschool. How many went to the preschool? Raise your hand. Yeah, there we go. Preschool is the oldest preschool in the city of Atlanta. To leverage that network in a smaller way in a campaign. We also think there's foundation money for multiple parts of this project. And so that's part of this feasibility right now. I've hired someone in my office. They're not going to be out front. We promised the congregation that we're not going to hire a firm that's going to be interviewing you or talking to you about how much you're going to give and getting that. This is kitchen table talk. This is family talk. This is a spiritual conversation. It's a theological conversation. You're going to see me, and we're going to talk through it. We're going to have the conversations. But I do have someone on the backside who's going to support me in the office. Her name is Laura Hardy. Is Laura here by chance? No, okay. Laura has over 2 decades of consulting experience, both in LA and here in Atlanta. And she's helping with some of the back-end kind of work, strategy, case building, and timeline. And has been a great support for me. I've gotten to know her over the last 2 months, and we officially hired her just this past week. So you'll see her around, and I want you to be familiar with her name, Laura Hardy. All right, finally, this pre-campaign feasibility, and then I'm going to open up for questions. I want to be very clear about what this means, okay? We're assessing the feasibility of West Campus development with a target dollar amount of $55.2 million, okay? That gets us most of the way there for this side of the campus. Gets us most of the way there. And by most of the way, I mean it gets us about $10 million short of this side of the campus. But that's the number that the session agreed to, that we would make a go, no-go decision to work with an architect to draw up the schematic plans and start to plan for what we're going to call creative time when we're displaced in some ways, and also sort of the construction phase, okay? So here's what's really important. The feasibility is not determining whether we have the financial resources in the congregation to meet this goal. We already know we have those. be confident this congregation, its membership, has this money already. That's not what we're trying to figure out. What we're trying to figure out, I said it's a theological conversation, is whether or not this is the God-ordained time for households in our congregation to be led by the Holy Spirit to meet the vision set forth by our campus master plan for the 1328 Peachtree side. That's the work. It's not trying to figure out if we have the money or not. We know we do. It's whether or not this is God's time for us, and whether it's our time to meet this challenge. What's on your mind? Hold on. I'll repeat questions too. Go ahead.
Provided we get to June or August or whatever and we get the go.
Yeah.
Do we have a set or a general timeline for when we would start construction?
Yeah.
This half of the campus?
Probably early 2021, mid 2021, Hank.
Yeah, I think realistically a year and a half after the go, year and a half after the go.
So the question was, when would construction actually start? A year to a year and a half after the go, no go. John.
What's the estimate of what this does to the operating budget?
That's a good question. So we have not looked at those numbers in detail. We have like whiteboard sketches. For example, custodial support. You know, how do you if this became a wedding venue, for example. Let's say we changed our alcohol policy and we became a wedding spot. We would not have Benny, is Benny in the room? We would not have Benny be here at 12 a.m. getting ready for the next day. So that's one thing. We definitely think for the cross the street that we'd outsource management of that, so that has costs. But we want to figure out what the dollars, we haven't even thought about what revenue is possible. We have to model that and then start to build that out. The other position that we've sketched out is an events coordinator. If this really becomes community space, then we have somebody who's navigating that.
So are we going to do that before the go?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have to. John asked again about additional staff and costs to the operating budget. The thing across the street, we imagine, can be a zero cost to the budget. That the revenue from that building will pay for itself. So it's this side of the campus that we're concerned about and do not have those answers yet. Other questions? Tully.
55 days, is there any interaction with the present well-managed endowment budget of the church?
Yeah. Yeah, so, Tully asked a question about how the endowment factors in. You know, if there is a go, no-go, and we move toward construction, and we'd be looking at a pledge process probably over a 5-year period for that $55 million, what we're talking about. So we need to borrow some money. The endowment may be a place where we borrow against, but I can tell you that the trustees are very reluctant, and I support this wholeheartedly, to use any endowment money to support the capital needs. The endowment has a fixed purpose, and so that is a great asset, and it supports the operating budget. So we want to stay away from. I know that had been a choice in the past that we've used. We used endowment trustees. Am I on point? Where am I? Where are trustees? Right? Thank you. I see you, Doug. I was waiting for the head nod. We've used endowment before. We want to stay away from that. But we do think it's a point of leverage for borrowing for a bridge loan for construction. And we've also have a commitment that we've talked about with the trustees at this point. We don't want to be in long-term debt. There are churches that we know and have watched how they've struggled because they're in long-term debt. And that's a commitment we're making. Susan.
In addition to the planned cafe, is there any other food preparation?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Susan asked, in addition to the cafe, is there any other food preparation? The one slide that is not here is the underground slide. And it's under this building with a full commercial kitchen. And what I didn't show you on this plan, and I don't want to spend time trying to find the slide, there's a catering kitchen. So the full commercial kitchen will be under this new space with a catering kitchen off the side of it, so that we will continue to be able to do the things that we want to do. So, for example, the prayer breakfast, we could either do that, buffet style in the 400-seat room, or we could do it in the atrium. I mean, we have multiple spaces now where we could do that, and that food can be prepared and then brought up via a service elevator into a catering kitchen.
How would it be served by delivery trucks?
Oh, good. So at underground, what do you call that, Hank? A service area, right? Yeah, great. Underneath in that area, I'm pointing to where it will be. There'll be a truck service area trucks can come down and turn around and go out. So trucks no longer have to come. You know, the trucks all come in our parking lot now when they're dropping things off. That will no longer be the case. They'll be dropping it off in that lower level, right back here. Let me just say one thing about that, because I don't want to be quoted on that. You said that's going to happen. Not that you would say it like that. We don't know how far the rock goes, and John McCall, who's been working on this for a while, and Hank, they've been really studying this. This would be such a great asset to our physical plant. We still have work to do in the geological study and sort of the turn radius of that, but we think it's possible to have all that right down below here. Yeah. Other questions? Wheeler.
How did you determine that the money is available?
Good question. I'm glad you asked that question. It's partly what I did on my sabbatical. And, there's a lot of public information out there. I also, through trends in giving and through personal conversations regarding people's wealth over the last 6 to 8 months that I've had with individuals. Knowing, there's people that have foundations, and we know exactly how much those foundations have, and we know how much they give away. That's all public information. We also can figure out what people, given their history of giving, whether they give to the Woodruff or they give to something else, we know those folks have capacity. And let me just be clear about this too. I'm talking about that $55 million in our schematic is 40 households. So the lead gift will be as big as the last campaign we did. If the way be clear, if God puts on people's hearts that this is the way we're going, that lead gift will be $15 million. That's what we did in 2008, right at the recession. And by the way, do you remember that campaign? What was it called? First Things First. Doug Ellis was the chair of that campaign. That campaign was incredible because nobody really saw much of it was all getting our house in order. Deferred maintenance and that. And we raised $15 million without a tower and without a brand new community space. So we have capacity. I'm 100% convinced of that. I don't know what God's going to do. Other questions in the back? Ibby. Yeah. 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 So we think that those adult rooms down below will be multi-purpose rooms, that they could be gathering spaces for people who are adults. We also see those spaces now with couches, those carve-outs that are contiguous to these rooms as natural organic spaces for people to sit down and have a cup of coffee and relax instead of having to walk these long hallways and not having any seats around or not having any place to really sit and convene and talk. We think we don't have, we're connected with Respite Care Atlanta right now, which is it's for older adults, but it's for folks who are dealing with dementia. So we support that ministry. And we certainly, I will say, one of the big folks that we see, the demographic we see are seniors who are experiencing homelessness. And right now, their experience of hospitality on the campus in the waiting room is terrible. So with that 2 new second and third floor story expanding the waiting room, Community Ministries, we see that as a space too that hits that demographic as well. Henry. Yeah.
Talk about the growth, your expected growth, about community and membership.
Yeah. That's really, I'm glad you asked that. Henry's asking about like the strategic growth of the church, right? Yeah. So we are, obviously this is a plan that's planning for growth, right, in some capacity. We don't see the growth necessarily defined in the metrics of members and non-members. We see it as community participation. And that number continues to grow each and every year. But the good news is we're a mainline Protestant church, and we continue to get new members. We have 30 who are signed up for a new members class today. And so for us, in an urban environment the way we are, to continue to see growth the way that we see growth is pretty remarkable. The other piece is that we don't have projections, Henry, per se, about where we are. I will say that, or where we're headed, I will say that we are probably as right-sized as our numbers right now as we've ever been. Maybe not ever been. That first church that moved here, they knew what their numbers were. But we're at 1850 congregation right now. In 2005, it was a 3,000 member congregation. But our participation average is at 35, weekly participation is like 35 to 40% in like worship, just as an example, where back in 2005 it was 17%, right? So it's more of a true number. And I think what will happen in the future is that people will be attracted to the participation of the church. That it's not just, oh yeah, I'm a member of there and I go Christmas and Easter. No offense to anybody who does that. You're here today, so I'm assuming you don't. But that church is a church, and we think that kind of church in the middle of the city is the kind of church people want to be a part of. They want to be a church that dedicates space to an affordable housing tower. They want to be a church that dedicates 2 floors to serve 700 people a month. They want to be a church that's serious about theological reflection. They want to be about a church who's serious about the arts in North Midtown. And we see that without a numeric, that's anecdotal, but I see that as one of our great assets. And if we have a campus that reflects our heart, think about what's possible. Think about what's possible. Other questions? Ann.
When you arrive with someone who needs a wheelchair,
Yeah.
there is no sheltered place for
Yes.
that wheelchair. I haven't heard that mentioned.
Yeah. You mean like getting out of your car and right. So the turnaround on the plaza level will not have, you'll be able to get real close, but you won't be able to go you're not undercover. However, the porte-cochere on that first level, where the Midtown deck comes, that door will come right out. You're not exposed to the elements. All right? So you walk out of Midtown Plaza deck. Whoa, that's bright. Walk out of Midtown Plaza deck, and you walk under the brand new preschool Christian education children's ministry site into a door, and you're inside. You can also, there's a 2-lane driveway where you can just come right up and they can get out undercover and go right there. Good question. Thanks.
Talk a little bit more about our external ministry through broadcast and online.
Yeah.
You mentioned the new video room. How about a video? Are we going to have a broadcast studio?
We imagine that there will be some space on campus that can be used as a broadcast studio. Right now we have 10,000 listeners on WSB. We have 366 people on average live streaming with us between the 9 and the 11 a.m. We have about 500-ish doing on-demand of content that we're putting out. And so we want to grow that. We want to leverage that. Originally, we talked about studio space. That kind of got left out. But we do imagine that those number 12s on that floor plan with the adult education, that there could be some space carved out that could serve as a studio in there. We can do anything we want in those rooms. We want to make them multi-purpose and functional there. Thank you. All right, one last question. In the back. Thanks. Yeah. Hank, you want to answer that?
There's been a lot of conversation, but we're definitely not to a point where we understand it yet. I think that the church will remain open throughout construction. The goal would be to keep the preschool here throughout. There'd be some serious summer work. But in terms of which goes first, that whole kind of, there's a lot to it, and it'll be worked out in future phases. So
Yeah.
we don't have a specific thing.
Yeah. We do know we're borrowing it from another church, we call it creative time. We'd have access to the sanctuary, we'd have access to the chapel. Parking would be an issue probably on this side of the campus, but not on that side of the campus. So weddings and funerals and all that we can continue to do. We'll just be managing getting people in and out. And then, of course, like receptions, we'd have to think about who are our partners in our neighborhood that have really, really big spaces. So there'd be a cost with that too. There's another church, right at the corner of Colony Square called Christian Scientist Church. They're not I don't think, as vibrant as we are. They have space available too. We have not approached anybody. We also have a bunch of members that live in Ansley Park, and I think Bible studies on Sunday morning in Ansley Park. Oh, Andrew, raise your hand if you live in Ansley Park. All right, you're signing up. You're signing up. So we think we're going to have to be super creative about this time. And again, as Hank said, we're not sure exactly how the phasing will take place. And we're not there yet. That's part of the ice cream cone of unknown. We're not there yet. Right now, I'm inviting you to pray. Pray for this process. Pray for God's leading in spirit. And if it's not the right time, it's not the right time. If it is the right time, we're going to keep moving. And we're going to follow the Spirit's lead. Thanks for your participation. I'm happy to answer questions. Not now. I've got to go preach. But I'm happy to answer your questions. God bless you. Thank you for your engagement in this process.